black cats and goblins, and broomsticks and ghosts, covens of witches with all of their hosts. You may think they scare me, you're probably right. Black cats and goblins on Halloween night. Trick or treat, everybody! How's it going, fans? Movie fans and horror fans alike? Demetri Panos here. Let me take my mask off, put my headphones on. And yes, welcome to yet another episode of Retro Rewind. Today, wrapping up Halloween horror. That's right. It seems like we started so long ago, or I started so long ago, and you've been along for the ride. Thank you very, very much. It's been great. You can catch during this Halloween weekend. You can go back and on YouTube to Hollywood Critics Association. I would subscribe to that site, and you can catch all the movies that I talked about. And I'll recap at the end of this broadcast. But today is a very special day. I'm also, not only is it a wrap up of Halloween horror, but it is a wrap up of me talking about the Halloween franchise, my favorite horror franchise. And as only Retro Rewind can do it, we started off in 2018 and have worked our way back, all the way back to John Carpenter's original classic, John Carpenter's Halloween. So, with the opening of the poem that's said at the beginning of that said movie. Well, why don't we just get started and retro rewind back to October 25th, 1978, when Halloween, or John Carpenter's Halloween, opened for American audiences to be scared. So it was distributed by Compass International. They no longer exist. Very independent company. Now, the budget to Halloween, or John Carpenter's Halloween, was as such. It was $300,000. Yes, that's $300,000 to a whopping $320,000. Now, to hear me say that, and to hear those words come out of my mouth, it's kind of crazy to think that they made Halloween on such a budget. Whereas today, I look at the number and I go, I keep on wanting to say $300 million. Because when an Avengers movie or a Marvel movie comes out, or Star Wars, or anything big, somebody says or asks, what was the budget on that movie? They say, it was $300 million. We don't even bat an eyelash. And when you think about what that movie has to make, that's crazy. But $300,000 in today's marketplace? I don't know of any independent movie that's been theatrically released with a budget of $300 and even say $20,000. Now, its box office gross, its domestic gross, was $47 million. Put that up against a $300,000, and it grossed $47 million at the box office at that time. Now, the total worldwide gross, $70 million. Now, I'm going to talk about something that I usually don't, but I think it's very important here. It's adjusted for inflation gross, okay? Factoring ticket prices and how they've gone up, it's over $182 million. $182 million on a movie that cost at most $320,000. Making Halloween one of the, if not the most successful independent, truly independent movie of the time and of all time. Okay? So that is a lot of spandulics there that John Carpenter's Halloween pulled in. And to say that it took over, I mean, it had audiences jumping in their seats. It reinvented a genre. Kudos, it still remains a classic, a masterpiece in my mind for today. Now, as we know, it was directed by John Carpenter, and it was written by John Carpenter and his then producing partner, writing partner, Deborah Hill. Cinematography, have to mention the great Dean Cundy. Okay, he cut his teeth working with Carpenter in these Halloween movies. Now the extraordinarily young cast, introducing a Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode. Donald Pleasance, he's the only big star of the movie. He plays Dr. Samuel Loomis. PJ Souls, who is a Playboy model, she was in the movie as one of Laurie's best friends, Linda, as was Nancy Loomis. That's how she was credited here, as Annie. Charles Cyphers played Sheriff Brackett. Nancy Stevens, she plays Nurse Marion. She's the nurse that goes with Donald Pleasance to go pick up Michael Myers. And of course, it has Halloween favorite Nick Castle as the Shape in Michael Myers. It should be known that Castle was like helping out on the set, friend of Carpenter's, and they were trying to figure out who could be the man underneath the mask. Nick Castle walked and said, "Hey, would you mind putting this on so we can shoot a couple of scenes? I want to see how this all looks," and blah, blah, blah. And one thing led to another. He became Michael Myers, or the Shape. Then there was another person. Tony Moran played Michael Myers without the mask. This is at the end of the movie. Okay, you know the scene that I'm talking about. It's the final assault on Laurie Strode, and he's going to strangle her. Laurie Strode pulls off the mask, and underneath that mask was Michael Myers, Tony Moran. So why the change? Why not Nick Castle? Well, they wanted, or Carpenter's whole thing was, he wanted the person underneath the mask, he wanted him to have an angelic, innocent quality in his face, to have the dichotomy of, wow, how could somebody so innocent looking do these heinous acts of violence and murder these teenagers? So that was Tony Moran. Sorry, Nick Castle, I guess you just didn't look angelic or nice enough. So I'm going to talk about Halloween, and I hope a different way that you may not have heard Halloween discussed before. Look, I just feel that Halloween is so set into our culture, and that many reviewers, film historians have dissected Halloween to death. And not that that's a bad thing. There's a ton of literature out there on Halloween that you can get to learn about shots, how they did certain things, and that's fantastic, right? But the way I'm going to look at Halloween today, I'm going to put it in a context of history, the time that it came out, the decade that it came out, the 70s, and then I will talk about it thematically as well, and something that it did that horror movies at the time hadn't really done before, and that's what makes Halloween different and special. So Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, was one of the last of its kind. What does that mean? Well, was it the last of the horror movie? No, absolutely not. What it means is it was one of the last of its kind of the 70s era types of movies. In 1978, Hollywood was in the midst of a major change as to how movies were made and then distributed. This change in Hollywood was due to the release of, I'm going to get to that in a little bit. So, but in the 70s, okay, now, mind you too, the 70s did have a lot of its, let's call them fluff movies. They had some good romantic comedies. There were the disaster movies of the 70s, another favorite genre of mine, especially those movies of the 70s. But many of the movies were very dramatic. They were gritty. And in most cases, they didn't have happy endings. And further still, the bad guy of said movie got away with it all. And in some cases, the hero, the protagonist of said movie, well, he didn't live at the end. Some of the movies that came out that you've probably heard about were, in no particular order, but The Exorcist, released 73. The Hills Have Eyes, 77. Last House on the Left in 1972. The Omega Man, talk about a hero dying at the end, 1971. And then Charlton Heston back in 1973 for Soylent Green is People. Then, of course, there's Chinatown in 1974. Forget it, Jake. It's Chinatown. You can't talk about the 70s decade without talking about Godfather, 1972. Then there was Richard Donner's The Omen in 1976. And we also got Carrie in 1976. The 70s directors had more creative control over their product, over what they were making. And they also had producers who backed them. They kind of shielded the creatives, the director and his crew, his cast and crew from the studio executives at the time. Some of those directors who made their bones in the 70s, again, people you've probably heard of. Francis Ford Coppola, Martin Scorsese, Roman Polanski, Brian De Palma, yes, even George Lucas, THX 1138, folks, Tobe Hooper, Wes Craven, to name a few, and of course, John Carpenter. So, what was that change in Hollywood? Well, for that, we'd go back to 1975, and it was a Universal release with this young, hot new guy coming from television called Steven Spielberg, and the movie was Jaws. Now, I've mentioned Jaws before. In fact, I had a whole podcast. It was one of the first, if not the launch of Retro Rewind, where I really dissected Jaws and talked about it in the sense of the pandemic that we're in. I urge you to go check that episode out. But I talked about that it did change Hollywood. And I'm going to go a little bit more into detail as to what it changed, how it changed, and what became. So, number one, it changed the way movies were marketed. Big time. Now, Jaws was tied into a huge international bestseller, Jaws by Peter Benchley. Universal bought the rights, and boom, you had this amazing cover, and the marketing was off the hook. Universal spent a ton. The likes at the time that no studio had ever paid before, whether it be print advertising, television advertising. It was all over the place. Plus, the book was everywhere. Not just in bookstores, which bookstores were very relevant at the time, and there were a ton of them, but it would be in pharmacies and other stores. It would be on end caps, the book. So, as I said, no other movie had this kind of marketing. If you didn't know that Jaws was coming out, well, you just weren't around in 1975, okay? So the other way in which Jaws changed Hollywood was the way in which the movie was distributed. Jaws went out at a whopping 500 locations all at once. Now, prior to that, movies would open up in waves, okay? They would play cities and territories and would travel. They would have to bicycle print to theaters. So it would end at one theater and literally called it bicycling a print, where they would pick up print and then we'd drive it 5 miles down into the next town so that it could open up at a theater there. This was common practice in the 70s. But Jaws changed all that. They went out 500 locations, give or take, all at once, making it the largest release, the commercial release of any picture at the time. Now, to put it in context to today, if a movie goes out at 500 locations today, we would consider it an independent art house kind of a film. But back in 1975, where Jaws was put out to the masses, you could see it opened up at a theater near you, literally. Okay, so it changed the way movies were being distributed. Now, with the marketing change, the distribution change, the money going into all of this, there was another shift, and it shifted creative control. It shifted creative control from director to producer to now the studio. With all the money that they were putting into this, they wanted to have a say about how the movie was looking. Okay, so that was a paradigm shift as well. Now, famed producer Robert Evans, he noted this change, and I'm going to suggest you read this fantastic book called The Big Goodbye. The book is basically about the making of Chinatown, but it is also about this change in Hollywood that I'm talking about. Now, Robert Evans, who produced Chinatown, he was not a fan of Jaws. He wasn't a fan of the movie, and he was also, even more so, not a fan of what Jaws represented. Okay, and that was a studio hierarchy was a changing, leaving a producer such as Robert Evans in less control over the product that he set out to make. Okay, he also noticed that this focus was on box office over quality. Many did not survive this change, and mind you, again, the other thing where the studio system too was changing, so people like Jerry Bruckheimer and Don Simpson were becoming big muckety mucks at places like Paramount, where Robert Evans was. Evans saw this change. It was one of the fatalities of this change. He was never as big as I mean, he's a legend today, but he never came out with a movie as big as, say, like his Chinatown. Okay. Another thing that was changing in movie making, tonally movies were changing as well. And all you have to do is not only look at 1975 and how Jaws end, kind of a happy ending there, but go to 1977 with another Steven Spielberg movie, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and that little movie, Star Wars. Yes. In 77, especially with the release of Star Wars, people felt good. People got to forget about a lot of crap that was going on in the 70s. And, Star Wars was a fantastic knights in shining armor type of fairy tale movie. Go save the princess, and there were space dog fights. It was a wonderful space opera. Anybody could see the movie, and you'd walk out and you were feeling pretty damn good. It was great. So movies were making this tonal change, which was going right into the 80s. So what about Halloween? Well, Halloween is definitely a sign of its times from, especially from a thematic stance. The country in the 70s, mid-70s, late 70s, is still reeling from a lot of not so great things. And certain filmmakers pounced on that. They put that feeling in their movies. There was corruption, still getting over Vietnam. There were protests taking place. We had the Nixon resignation, Kent State, and Halloween. John Carpenter and company, they stayed true to those 70s era tropes. And for me, that's part of what makes Halloween so special. If you're still on the fence about what I've been saying, I want you to ask yourself one simple question. Had John Carpenter's Halloween come out after Friday the 13th, would it have been the same movie that we got in 1978? I argue no, it would not have. Because, again, Halloween in 78, it reimagined a genre, it redefined a genre of horror in which Friday the 13th just pounced on. And then they made the slasher splatter kind of a movie. And had Friday the 13th come out and had still been the success that it was, right? Think about it. Think about Hollywood too, because this has not changed in Hollywood. Once they see one movie succeed, then all the other studios scramble to find something very similar. Because if it succeeded with them, they want to have their hand in that cookie jar as well. So perhaps a script for Halloween would have fallen on an executive's desk. He would have read it and said, okay, I've got the next Friday the 13th movie. But man, we got to add more killings. We got to bloody it up, make it more slasher, because that's what the kids want today. And I truly believe that that's what would have happened had Friday the 13th come out when it did and Halloween followed it. But thankfully, for us horror fans, for us movie fans too, I think that anybody can enjoy Halloween for what it is. It's a great suspense thriller. It is a horror movie. It is not focused necessarily on the violence and gore. In fact, a lot of that in certain ways is covered up, and it's not what Friday the 13th became. So we have the fact that it was released in 1978 to be thankful for, that Halloween came out when it did. Let everybody else copy Halloween, but Halloween still remains a classic and an original. Now, another thing that Halloween did at the time too, it was one of the first horror movies that even I could recall as a kid to showcase the quiet little town, suburbia. Halloween wasn't set in the woods, the desert, or in a rural country farm by a campfire, and for sure it wasn't in this seedy, violent city. No, it was purposely set in the quiet, safe suburbs. In fact, in Halloween 2, one of the sheriff's deputies says something to the effect of, Haddonfield was a quiet town. The only gunshots you'd heard were the start of the Haddonfield High track meets. Suburbia is supposed to be safe. That was the 70s. Let me tell you, growing up in the 70s, you have no idea how trusting people were. They kept their cars unlocked. They kept their houses unlocked. Everybody knew one another in the neighborhood, and you had trust in your neighbors as they had trust in you. The teenagers on Halloween, well, they acted like teenagers of the time. That's a major part, and thanks in large part to Deborah Hill's writing. The teenagers at the time in the suburb of Haddonfield and any town USA, the teenagers were innocent teenagers having teenage conversation. It's about homework and crushes. And their biggest problem was, who are you going to homecoming with? Totally. So that too brought in characters for audiences to actually care for. So that when the mayhem and the violence begins, you're like, you're kind of bummed out at some of the deaths. You really are. So let's talk a little bit about another theme of Halloween. And this is going to include it taking place in the suburbs. A major theme of Halloween that I see is that evil. Evil is all around us. All around us. Michael Myers, the shape, in his nondescript, emotionless mask represents that evil. And I want to talk about that mask in a little bit because it's integral. That mask is integral, and it went through some various iterations as to what they wanted to do. But the mask is integral because evil in Halloween, it's out in the open. Evil every day, even today, is out in the open. The characters in Halloween, particularly characters that end up with, they don't end up in the best of situations. They literally neglect to see evil in the open. In fact, there are only two characters who see evil. One knows of the evil as what it is, and that's Dr. Sam Loomis, who presides over Michael Myers. He says it throughout the entire movie. He calls him simply and truly evil. The other is Laurie Strode. She, throughout the movie, sees Michael Myers, or this shape. She sees him outside of a classroom window. She sees him driving a station wagon when her friends Annie and Linda think it's Devon Graham. And Laura's like, I don't think so. She sees the shape out besides these large hedges while Annie is looking through a pocketbook. She's not paying attention to what is in front of her, but Laurie Strode is. Okay? And then when Annie looks up, the evil is gone. The shape walked away. They go over, and Annie thinks that Laurie might be losing it. And this leads up to one of the best jump scares, in which it's windy, leaves are blowing, close-up of Laurie Strode, and then she bumps into Annie's father, Sheriff Bracken, and, well, it's Halloween. We're all entitled to one good scare, right? So all the characters who choose not to see evil for what it is, they suffer for this neglect. Now, I know that in many of the horror movies that came out in the 80s and such, it was always the teenagers who had sex are going to die because they shouldn't be having sex. It was a more, that was even a dopey argument. There's they're morally, the teenagers, they shouldn't be having sex. So it's a moral thing that we're doing. Yeah, that's why we can get away with the blood and gore. Halloween, it wasn't really necessarily about that. There's only one couple, actually, that's having sex. There's only one person who has any nudity. Poor Annie, she was trying to maybe have sex, but she didn't have sex. What did she do? What her sin was, again, she neglected to see evil. And the evil was all around Annie. Okay? Not only from the hedges, but the shape was at her house. He was outside a kitchen window. He was outside a laundry door. He was outside a kitchen door while she's on the phone. She neglected to see the shape of evil, and that led to her demise. Now, when you talk about not seeing evil and ignoring it, right? This also brings us back in a sense to suburbia, right? Because for the characters not to see evil, that's one thing, right? That makes things kind of scary. But the ending of Halloween really hammers the point home. Why? Because it is a further intrusion of suburban societal safety. How so? Well, at the end of the movie, as you know, Dr. Loomis shoots 6 times, not the 7 that he shoots in Halloween 2, but 6 times. Michael Myers goes over a balcony, falls on the ground. We see him like laying on the ground, dead. Loomis comes back. You hear the great line from Laurie Strode saying that was the boogeyman. As a matter of fact, it was. He goes to look over. The evil is gone. The shape, Michael Myers, is all that's left is an imprint in the grass. And then we go to a very significant montage of various scenes for where action took place in the movie, whether it be a kitchen, a set of stairways, a bedroom, okay, a couch. All of these and all of this was done with the sound of the Michael Myers breathing from within the mask. It really puts an exclamation point on how innocence of suburbia is now tainted. Our comfort zones, they're no longer comfortable. Evil is around us, and it seeps into our lives, kind of like a pandemic. That to me is Halloween's boldest statement. And that is pretty much where Halloween ends. So, again, to me, these are thematically what makes Halloween so scary, even to today. The movie is just about 90 minutes, and it's a potboiler too. Okay, I mean, it starts off strong. An innocent 6-year-old boy murders his sister, and then it takes some time to build back up until the last 20 minutes of the movie are nail biting on the edge of your seat. So, Dr. Loomis says, death has come to your little town, Sheriff. You can either ignore it or you can help me stop it. And ignoring it is the big issue. Now, another thing, I was going to talk about the mask a little bit. Now, today it's common knowledge. That the mask was a remade up Star Trek William Shatner mask. Okay. But they were having trouble trying to figure out what kind of mask the shape should have. One of them was a clown. Now, people are afraid of clowns. Clowns can be very sinister, as we've seen in many a movie. All poltergeists, right? So, but think about it. When you have an emotionless face, a blank face, like a cream white face with no expression whatsoever, and you cannot see the person underneath other than the eyes, that is evil in a sense personified. It is what the victim will most likely, in a sense, last see. And it also symbolizes Michael Myers and his carrying these acts out with no sympathy, but an apathy. We don't know what he looks like underneath the mask, but that mask is giving away nothing. Nothing at all. And all we do know is that Michael Myers continues to do what Michael Myers does. The mask, to me, is very important to the movie. The fact that it is a William Shatner mask, yes, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. Guilty as charged. But the way they made it look by painting it that white, and the lips, the cheeks, it really, right there. You can see that mask in a sense right there on my shirt. And right behind me. When you're carrying those acts of murder and violence, and there is no sympathy for a victim, and it's further just showcased by the mask in which that person wears, that to me makes Michael Myers extraordinarily scary. Yes, the hockey mask that Jason dons in later movies, starting from part 3, that's one thing, but it's a hockey mask. You look at it and you go, hockey mask. If nobody told you that the Michael Myers mask was William Shatner, you wouldn't know. I mean, it does kind of change things for me in certain scenes when there's a close-up and you go, this is Captain Kirk, red alert. But the emotionless and just the blank face in which the victim can put whatever they want, or they can project on that. That to me is very scary. And when I first saw Halloween, it was the suspense of it all, the way John Carpenter used close-ups, and it's where I learned how using a close-up, you're actually hiding things off the sides and even off from the top, so that if you're pulling away, somebody can jump in. Or is the use of lighting, as that great scene with Laurie Strode at the top of the stairs after she just witnessed the body count of her friends, Annie, Linda, Bob, and she's in total shock, and behind her in complete darkness, a light comes on and there's that expressionless mask that comes out and attacks her on the top of the staircase. All of these things, to me, make Halloween the top fantastic masterpiece thriller that it is. I will always love Halloween, and I will always keep my tradition of watching Halloween on Halloween evening. So I hope that you took something away, and perhaps now when you place Halloween in 1978, we ought to be rejoicing and thankful that it came out when it did. I'm not entirely sure had it come out sooner that it would have done as well. I think at that time, people were looking for a cathartic release, and that's one of the great things about horror movies, especially when you watch them with a large crowd. It's one of the best movie-going experiences there can be because everybody jumps at the same time. Everybody is feeling that suspense. And then when a shock happens, everybody jumps and it's like, it is a release. It's a roller coaster ride. I know many people don't like horror, but Halloween time, that is when people are very more accepting of horror. So if you have a certain someone, whether it be a best friend or a partner, and they're not into horror, I bet you if you were to say, hey, let's watch Halloween on Halloween. I know, it sounds cheesy and tacky. Trust me, it's fun. And I bet you they'd go, yeah, okay. Sure, why not? It's supposed to be horror. We go on a costume party. So my will stay indoors. I'm telling you they'll be more susceptible this year to watch a movie like the John Carpenter's Halloween. So I hope you got something from this. I hope you enjoyed. Next, I'm going to do something. We're going to rank the Halloween movies from my least favorite to my favorite. I'm going to rank the movies. Just a side note, fine. You want me to rank the Rob Zombie movies? Wicked easy. He only did 2. From worst to less worst, we've got Halloween to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and then Rob Zombie's Halloween. Easy peasy, done there. I'm not going to include Halloween 3, The Season of the Witch. Why? Because I feel Season of the Witch, it's a standalone movie. That's what John Carpenter and Deborah Hill and the creatives behind it, that's what they wanted it to be. They wanted it to be a standalone movie. I enjoy the movie. I enjoy it. I've enjoyed it more as the years have gone on. I think it's aged better than when it first came out, but I'm not going to include Halloween, Season of the Witch, Halloween 3. Okay. So here we go. Ranked from my least favorite, from worst to best, okay? Starting with the worst Halloween movie. Can you guess what it might be? If you've been watching these, you might have you might be able to figure this out. But for me, the worst Halloween movie is Halloween Resurrection. Absolutely the worst. I still, to this day, as many times as I've watched it, I cannot get over how they so mishandled, mistreated, disrespected the character of Laurie Strode, and how she dies at the beginning, the first 10 minutes of the movie, and how Michael Myers comes back. It's just silly to me. I mean, yeah, I can't. Every time I watch it, my groan becomes louder and louder, and I just want to at times even shut it off and put it back in the case and say, forget about it. Okay. Then I'm going to go to Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. I'm going to go right behind Resurrection. I'm going to go with the theatrical version of Curse of Michael Myers. The theatrical version, because that theatrical version is just a mess. Just a mess. Again, studio control. We want more violence. We want more sex. We want more blood. I don't care about the stupid plot with runes and astrology or astronomy. Oh, good God, it's a mess. The producer's cut has more of a plot line. So that would be next on that list, following the theatrical version of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Then goes Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, the producer's cut, for the pure simple fact that it has a narrative. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. As stupid as it may be, it still has a narrative, okay? Now, after that, then it goes to Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Yeah, you heard me talk about this movie too. This is the movie where just the wheels were falling off the wagon, folks. This is what brought up the dumb tattoo, the Man in Black. We had a dopey, silly ending. The teenagers. This is a perfect example. When I talked about teenagers earlier in this show, the teenagers in this movie were so annoying. And the one teenager, Ellie Cornell, Rachel, that you really liked from Halloween 4, they kill her off. It's unexplained. She's the one character that you kind of like, right? From Halloween 4, Rachel Crows, and they kill her off, leaving an audience to sit through these unsympathetic, just annoying schmucks. They deserved what they got. Regardless, Pleasance has he's fine. Some of the scenes of stalking were fine, but man, you talk about this is why Halloween is so special, because you care about these characters, right? So then I'm going to go from Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Now my needle is starting to tip from red. Then we're going to start to go into the yellow before we start getting into the green. I actually enjoy Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. It does a decent job with what they had. Okay, I mean, they didn't have Laurie Strode. They didn't have Jamie Lee Curtis. So they came up with the best story that they could at the time. It made sense. Dwight H. Little's direction was really good, and Danielle Harris and Ellie Cornell, they were really good. Teenagers weren't horrible. They weren't totally annoying. And there's some decent suspense. And ultimately, I enjoy Halloween 4. But then I'm going to go to Halloween 2. Halloween 2, this is the direct sequel to the original Halloween. I enjoy Halloween 2. Yes, see, Halloween 2 is a product of what I talked about earlier. Okay? They wanted a sequel. John Carpenter, they didn't want to do a sequel. He didn't direct. Rick Rosenthal directed. But he had to write it. And he did what he could. He was drunk most of the time off of some Budweiser. But Halloween 2 is where we get the brother-sister relationship of Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. There are more kills. There are more teenagers. They weren't annoying, but it was a sign of the times. We saw more nudity. We had sex in a hot tub, or at least the attempt at sex in a hot tub. But we saw more gore. Needles and eyeballs, scorching of the scalding of a face, needles through the head, bloodletting. We even saw a little boy who bit into a razor-laced apple. We saw that. So there was more blood, more gore, but we still had Laurie Strode. Still, Dr. Loomis had some great scenes in it. I've been trick-or-treated to death. I've been trick-or-treated to death tonight. You don't know what death is. There are many aspects of Halloween 2 that I still enjoy. And then I'm going to go from Halloween 2, I'm going to go to Halloween 2018. Now, the number 3 and the number 2 spot were difficult for me to do. I kept on going back and forth with them. And I'm going to explain in a sec. But Halloween 2018 gets the 3rd spot, with Halloween H2O getting the pole position there. The 2nd spot, okay? Why? Number 1, I love both movies. I really do. But Halloween 2018, I had to push it into 3rd. Why? Because of that Dr. Sartain character. That character is so annoying. Excuse me. That was the pause that refreshes. That Dr. Sartain character in Halloween 2018 is just annoying. And the mere fact that it's that character that takes out what I thought was the best new character of the movie was Hawkins. And Sartain takes him out, and his motivations are just, it was an annoying character. I was sad to see him go, but I was also sad to see Hawkins go as well. That is why I put Halloween 2018 at number 3. Halloween H2O, number 2. I still think that is, like I said, one of the best sequels to the Halloween franchise. That's why it gets number 2. It's a great setup. You get Jamie Lee Curtis back, right? Janet Leigh, her mom's in it. You have a good cast of kids. Again, they weren't annoying teenagers at this uppity school up in Northern California. I like the change of scenery. But most of all, I love the last half hour or so of H2O because it really kicks into high gear. And that is where Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, as I said, talking about H2O, that is her Ripley moment. She is she goes from being on the defensive to being on the offensive. And when she grabs that axe and she breaks that emergency glass and grabs that axe and Jess yells out, "Michael!" It's awesome. It's great. And the movie, the pace does not let up. Steve Miner, Patrick Lussier, John Ottman's score really work. And it's tight. The movie, again, a very brisk, like 90 minutes. So Halloween H2O, my second favorite Halloween movie, leaving none other than, of course, John Carpenter's Halloween. And for all the aforementioned reasons that I talked about it is my favorite of the franchise, but it's my favorite horror movie as well. It really is. Because of everything that I said previously. Thematically, I love it. I love Carpenter's style of directing. Really, for that budget of $300,000 for what they accomplished and put on screen, they did so much with so little. And yes, there are gaffes here and there in the movie. Fine, I'm going to forgive them because the movie makes you jump. And when I watch the movie, and I've watched it, I can't even tell you how many times, I still end up seeing little nuances that I may not have recognized before. That to me is a sign of a great classic. You can rewatch it and still pick something out that you didn't recognize before. The movie still works for me. So John Carpenter Halloween is my all-time favorite horror movie, and it's my favorite of the franchise. Speaking of rankings, I'd love to know if you're a Halloween fan, what is your favorite? How does it go what is your order of movies? You can follow me and support me on the Twitters and the Instagram. It's real easy. It's at Demetri Panos. That's it. At DEMETRIPANOS. One long word, Demetri Panos, for both Twitter and Instagram. You can also on YouTube. You're allowed to leave comments, so please do. Let me know what you think your favorite Halloween movie is. I also, I love feedback from people. Let me take this back. I love honest, thought out feedback from people. Do I care whether you agree with me or not? Yeah, to an extent. Don't we all? Don't we all care? About how other people view our opinions? Well, we do. But when people are rude and there's nastiness and there's name calling, there's no room for that. And if you do that on YouTube, I'm just going to ignore you. I will. I don't have time for it. But if you do something that's thought out and you take time to write me, I will write you back. I will say thanks for taking the time. And whether you agree with me or disagree with me, just you put something together that was thought out, and we can have that and start that conversation. And you can do that on YouTube. Also, you could recommend this to other of your friends. That would be fantastic too. A major thanks to you folks for tuning in to me. There will be more Retro Rewind. I'm just done with horror movies for now. I already have in my head a kind of schedule as what's going forward. And I also want to thank Scott Menzel, Ashley Menzel. They are the founders of the Hollywood Critics Association, which I am a part of. Go figure, they let me in, and I couldn't be more proud. The range of people there are fantastic, and I love having conversations about movies, especially, I'm proud to call Scott and Ashley friends, but it's such a great association, and I'm so proud to be a part of it. And also thanks to Scott for putting together the link. So I just call him the producer of Retro Rewind. Big thanks to him. Hey folks, it is Halloween this year, and please, just please, be safe. As I said before, there is evil all around us in this pandemic. It's there. We may not be able to see it, but it's there. So that means I just want you to be careful. Please use your noggin. Please use your common sense. Please don't do anything silly. Stay in on Halloween night. Watch Halloween. Go watch The Great Pumpkin. Charlie Brown's The Great Pumpkin. Watch some of the movies that I talked about on Retro Rewind, which included The Fog and Ghost Story and Creature from the Black Lagoon and the original War of the Worlds. We talked about some good stuff, all Halloween related too. So, but please be careful, because I want you to come back. I don't want you getting sick, right? Be cognizant of the evil that's around you. Mask up, please. Also, vote. I don't care who you vote for, but just vote, okay? Get out and vote. Also, another PSA. We got to switch our clocks back this weekend. Yeah, as if we haven't got enough going on. So we got Halloween into November 1st, early morning, November 1st. It's Retro Rewind. We put our clocks back an hour. You gain an extra hour of sleep, but man, out here in California, I'm pretty sure we voted this thing out and we're still doing it. Oh, yeah. In any case, so don't forget to set your clocks back. Thank you again for tuning in and listening. Please rate. And that's it. I'm going to be signing off, folks. Thank you for joining for all these Halloween horrors. Have a great Halloween yourself. Stay safe. Eat some candy and have some pizza.